Before the gates slam shut and the truth comes out, hit subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comment what you think justice really means. Because this story goes places most people never come back from. The sirens cut through the night like knives. Red and blue lights bounced off concrete walls, slick with rain, as guards shouted orders no one seemed to hear. Inside cell block D, an inmate lay face down on the floor, wrists bound with torn bedsheet, breath shallow, eyes open but empty. No cameras were working in that corridor. They never were when something bad happened. By the time emergency lights flooded the tier, the damage was done. 3 hours earlier, Daniel Mercer had been standing in a county courtroom, hands shaking slightly as the judge read his sentence. 18 months. Nonviolent offense. One wrong decision involving forged documents, and a desperate attempt to keep his small contracting business afloat. The judge even said the words low-risk offender, as if they were supposed to soften the blow. Daniel nodded, thanked his lawyer, and told himself he could survive 1.5 years. He had no idea how wrong he was. The transport bus arrived at Iron Heights Correctional Facility just before dusk. The prison rose out of the flat landscape like a concrete scar, razor wire glinting against a bruised sky. Veterans on the bus stared straight ahead. First-timers like Daniel looked everywhere and nowhere at once. Inside processing, his name was stripped away and replaced with a number. His clothes were taken. His wedding ring disappeared into a plastic bag labeled personal effects. When he asked when he'd get it back, the officer smirked. Depends how you behave. Daniel was assigned to cell block D, a medium security wing officially designated for nonviolent offenders. Unofficially, it was where the prison dumped inmates who didn't fit neatly anywhere else. Debtors, informants, men who asked too many questions. His cellmate was Marcus Reed, late 30s, calm eyes, a man who spoke softly and listened closely. Rule 1, Marcus said as the door clanged shut behind them. Don't trust what you see on day 1. This place watches you before it eats you. Daniel laughed nervously, assuming it was prison talk meant to scare newcomers. Marcus didn't smile back. Over the next few days, Daniel learned the rhythms of Iron Heights, when to keep his head down, which guards ignored which rules, how certain inmates controlled entire tiers without ever raising their voices. He noticed how favors moved faster than paperwork. Cigarettes, protection, silence. Marcus became his guide. He warned Daniel about a group known as the West Yard Crew, inmates who ran gambling and contraband with help from someone on the outside. Everyone knew they existed. No one said their names. Then there was Officer Harlan. Harlan worked nights. He lingered too long by certain cells, whispered instead of shouted, and seemed unusually interested in Daniel. One evening during count, he paused outside Daniel's bars. You're the paperwork guy, right? Harlan asked casually. Daniel hesitated. I owned a business. Harlan nodded. Might have a use for someone like you. After that, things changed. Marcus grew distant. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when Daniel approached. A folded note appeared on his bunk one morning with 2 words written in block letters. Stay clean. Daniel didn't know what it meant until the fight in the shower room. It started fast. Too fast. 1 second he was rinsing soap from his face. The next he was slammed against tile, hands wrenching his arms behind his back. Someone hissed his ear. Wrong place, wrong curiosity. Then it was over. Guards arrived late. Always late. Marcus patched Daniel up that night, without asking questions. You need to listen now, Marcus said quietly. This prison isn't about serving time. It's about leverage. Someone thinks you're useful, or someone thinks you're a problem. Which one am I? Daniel asked. Marcus looked at the wall, not at him. That depends on what Officer Harlan wants you to do. 2 nights later, during lockdown, the power flickered. Just once. Enough to reset old cameras. Enough to open doors that weren't supposed to open. That was when the scream started. By the time lights stabilized, an inmate lay broken in the corridor. And when investigators later reviewed the corrupted footage frame by frame, they noticed something else. Daniel Mercer standing outside his cell, staring down the tier, while Officer Harlan watched from shadows. But what they found hidden inside Daniel's mattress during the emergency sweep would change the entire case. The object hidden inside Daniel Mercer's mattress was small, flat, and wrapped in plastic, but its weight shifted the direction of the investigation instantly. It wasn't contraband in the usual sense. No drugs. No blade. It was a burner phone, scratched, outdated, and powered off. The kind designed to disappear. Daniel didn't know it was there. When Internal Affairs pulled him from his cell at dawn, he assumed it was about to fight in the showers. Instead, he was led past administrative offices and into a windowless interview room that smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. 2 investigators waited inside, their badges catching the harsh fluorescent light. One of them slid the phone across the table. "Want to explain this?" she asked. Daniel's mouth went dry. "I've never seen that before." They didn't believe him. They had reason not to. The phone had been used 3 times in the past week. All calls placed after midnight. All to the same external number. The last call ended 10 minutes before the power flicker in the assault in cell block D. Daniel's name wasn't attached to the phone, but his cell was. His mattress. His bunk. He was moved to administrative segregation before lunch. Solitary was quieter than he expected. No shouting. No conversations echoing down the tier. Just the constant hum of ventilation. And the sense of being watched even when no one was there. Hours passed without explanation. When a guard finally slid food through the slot, Daniel asked for a phone call. The guard laughed. "You already had one." Meanwhile, Iron Heights was unraveling. The inmate attacker in the blackout, a man named Luis Calderon, had survived, but barely. He was found bound with a bedsheet in a methodical way, wrists secured, ankles crossed. This wasn't a random assault. It was a message. Calderon had been scheduled to testify in a federal corruption case tied to prison labor contracts. Someone wanted him silent, and someone had access. Investigators widened the scope. Officer Harlan's name surfaced quickly, too quickly. His shift aligned with the blackout. His access log showed irregular door overrides. When they went to bring him in for questioning, his locker was empty. Harlan didn't report for duty again. Inside segregation, Daniel learned none of this. All he knew was that the walls felt like they were closing in and that Marcus Reed hadn't come to check on him. Marcus always found a way. Except now. On the 3rd day, a new guard escorted Daniel to medical under the pretense of evaluation. Halfway down the corridor, the guard leaned close and whispered, "Stop saying you don't know." Daniel froze. "What?" "You're not supposed to be clean," the guard continued, eyes forward. "That phone was insurance. Someone planted it because you're the kind of guy people believe. You look harmless." They reached medical. The guard walked away as if nothing had happened. That night, Daniel replayed every moment since his arrival. Officer Harlan's questions, Marcus's warnings, the note on his bunk, "Stay clean." It wasn't advice. It was a threat. In the infirmary wing, Calderon regained consciousness long enough to speak to a federal agent. His voice was barely audible, but what he said sent ripples through 3 agencies. "There's a list," he whispered. "Inmates and guards. They move paperwork, launder contracts, make problems disappear." "Where is it?" the agent asked. Calderon's eyes shifted toward the ceiling cameras. Already inside. That same night, a fire alarm went off in administrative offices. No flames, just smoke from a single trash can. Enough to trigger an evacuation. Enough for someone to access secure filing cabinets. By morning, the evidence locker inventory was wrong. Files missing. Hard drives wiped. And the burner phone, Daniel's burner phone, gone. In segregation, Daniel was awakened by footsteps. 2 inmates were moved into nearby cells. Both faces familiar from the West Yard crew. One smiled at him through the bars. "You're popular," the inmate said. "People think you know things." Daniel gripped the edge of his bunk. "I don't." The inmate shrugged. "Doesn't matter." Later that day, Daniel was escorted to meet his lawyer. She looked exhausted, eyes darting even in the private room. "They're building a case around you," she said bluntly. "Obstruction. Conspiracy. Possibly worse." "I didn't do anything," Daniel said. Someone setting me up? She leaned in. Then you need to tell me who inside that prison wants you quiet. Daniel thought of Marcus, of Officer Harlan, of the guard's warning in the hallway. Before he could answer, alarms blared again, this time closer. Shouting followed. Running feet. The lights flickered, then died completely. In the darkness, Daniel heard a voice from the next cell over. "You should have stayed invisible," Marcus Reed whispered. And then the doors began to unlock. The doors didn't swing open all at once. They clicked one by one like a countdown. In the darkness, metal scraped against concrete, and someone laughed, low, controlled, confident. Emergency lights snapped on, bathing the segregation tier in red. Marcus Reed stepped out first. Daniel stared as if seeing him for the first time. The calm eyes, the measured voice, the man who had taught him how to survive. Marcus wasn't supposed to be here. Segregation inmates didn't get released during alarms. Not unless someone wanted them loose. "You set this up?" Daniel said, his voice cracking. Marcus smiled faintly. "I set a lot of things up." The truth came fast after that, because there was no reason to hide it anymore. Marcus wasn't serving time for the crime listed on his file. That conviction was a placeholder, a cover agreed upon years earlier. Marcus had been inside Iron Heights to manage the inside half of a laundering operation tied to federal prison contracts. Food services, maintenance, inmate labor. Millions skimmed through shell companies. Guards paid. Inmates controlled. Officer Harlan had been one of theirs. So had others. But Calderon's cooperation threatened everything. "And you?" Daniel asked. "Why me?" Marcus stepped closer to the bars. "Because you're believable. Clean record. Minor crime. If the list surfaced, it needed a fall guy who wouldn't look like a career criminal. The burner phone. The planted evidence. The stage blackout. It all snapped into place. Before Marcus could say more, shouts echoed from the far end of the tier. Flashlights cut through the red haze. Someone had moved faster than expected. Marcus's expression hardened. "Time's up." He turned away, but stopped when Daniel spoke. "You missed one thing." Marcus looked back. "I talked to my lawyer," Daniel said, "and she talked to someone who doesn't work for this prison." Marcus's smile faded. What Marcus didn't know was that Daniel had stopped being invisible the moment he was placed in segregation. Federal investigators had already suspected an inside coordinator. Calderon's whispered warning had narrowed it down. The missing files weren't destroyed. They'd been copied. The fire alarm had been bait. As Marcus reached the control panel at the end of the tier, armed officers flooded in from both sides. This time, the cameras worked. Every second was recorded. Marcus didn't run. He raised his hand slowly, almost respectfully. Harlan was arrested 2 states away less than an hour later, trying to cross the border with cash and a fake passport. Other guards followed, then accountants, then executives. The list Calderon mentioned wasn't just inside the prison. It stretched far beyond it. Daniel was released into protective custody, while charges against him were dropped quietly. Too quietly. No apology. No compensation. Just a document stating his sentence had been reconsidered in light of new evidence. 3 months later, Iron Heights looked the same from the outside. Concrete, wire, silence. Inside, it was different. Marcus Reed was sentenced again, this time without a cover. He was placed in a facility far from Iron Heights, isolated, monitored, stripped of influence. The operation collapsed without him. Contracts were frozen. Careers ended. Daniel walked free. He didn't go back to his old life. His business was gone. His marriage didn't survive the months of silence and fear. Some nights, he still woke up hearing doors unlock in the dark. A journalist eventually tracked him down, asked if he wanted to tell his story. Daniel declined, because there was one final detail no one ever reported. During the arrest, investigators discovered an older file buried deep in Iron Heights records, one that had nothing to do with money. It listed prior incidents, unexplained inmate assaults, deaths ruled accidental, cases closed without investigation. All of them happened during Marcus Reed's previous assignments. Marcus hadn't just managed corruption. He'd been selecting who disappeared. The report was sealed. The prison issued a statement. Life moved on. And somewhere in another facility, behind another locked door, Marcus Reed smiled at the knowledge that the system only fixed what was forced to see. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, make sure you're subscribed, because some truths don't stay buried forever.